Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Samantha Tai, and I am the Audience Relations and Communication Coordinator here at InterArts Matrix. Before we continue with today's program, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge that the land from which I speak to you today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishnaabe, and the neutral peoples. The city, now known as Kitchener, exists under the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, which was originally signed by the Six Nations and the Dutch, but throughout history, other nations, including France and England, have also signed on. This treaty is made up of 3 tenets that characterize our collective responsibility: take only what you need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. As a settler on this land, I am also bound to this treaty, and I recognize that I have not always upheld my treaty duties. I share this with you because whether we are colonizers or have been colonized, we are all responsible in creating a more just future for everyone. So I would like to once again welcome you to this afternoon's Xcamera talk. For those of you who may be joining our community for the first time today, I just want to give a little background on how Xcamera got started. So the Xcamera series began in the spring of 2019 when a group of people who were interested in the arts began gathering at Fresh Ground Cafe or the Common Studio in downtown Kitchener every Friday afternoon to hear a lecture by an interdisciplinary artist or professional. The lectures were followed by a question and answer period, and then time for people to stay in the cafe space, eat lunch together, continue conversations, and build a community. This happened every Friday afternoon until March 2020, when our gatherings shifted online. It's in this spirit of supporting artists and building community that Xcamera continues virtually here on Zoom. For the next few weeks, we'll be focusing on the practices and projects of each of the 6 artist mentees participating in the COVOX incubator. This incubator is made up of 2 different projects. So the first is COVE, which is primarily funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation with the goal of transmitting knowledge to the next generation of artistic directors. COVOX is a project funded by Canada Council for the Arts Digital Strategies Fund and builds on COVE with the goal of experimenting, developing, and sharing knowledge about digital audience engagement, with small and medium-sized arts organizations in the Waterloo region. Partner organizations for COVOX include Empty Space, Open Ears Festival, Numis Concerts, Studio D20 Women's Media Art Collective, Neruda Productions, and Idea Exchange. This emerging artist series, I guess, that we have is hosted by game designer and artist Marie LeBlanc Flanagan. Marie works in the playful spaces between people and is especially passionate about building connections and creating community. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Marie.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. Really great to see you again. I am delighted today to introduce you to Andrew Jacob Rinehart, who is a multimedia artist working here in Waterloo, Ontario, which is the traditional land of the Haudenosaunee, Anishnaabe, and neutral peoples. And Andrew has an amazing practice. I mean, we're going to get into this, but right now, I mean, maybe always, it's ever evolving, and it's exploring ideas around playfulness, quiet, lability, and stillness. Andrew has a strong musical background and uses sound as a medium for developing the foundation of his work. And lately, Andrew has begun developing immersive spaces. And so we might talk about that a bit today, with experimental interface design to create whimsical and personal experiences. So welcome, Andrew.
Hi, Marie. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm a huge fan.
I'm also excited. I feel like this is wonderful. Yeah, so I want to start, for people who don't know you, if you don't mind, I would love to start with something about like you, Andrew, like, because actually I don't even know that much about like how you emerged. Like, where did you come from? Like, what is like the place that you came from? Like, if you were to come from somewhere, what is that place?
I come from a lot of different directions, I guess, at this point that have all accumulated in one thing. My background is music. I studied music at an institution for far too many years. It took me 8 years to get my undergraduate degree with a break in the middle there. And for that, I studied the harp as an instrument, which is still a part of my practice, but it's just a less and less important part. Because really through I always knew I would be an artist. Ever since I was a little big, I just always thought I would be a painter. And so even through my undergraduate degree, I always would tell people like, well, I'm a musician second, I'm an artist first, and this just happens to be the medium I work in. And since leaving the institution, I've been able to explore so many more different interesting directions that have kind of feels a little bit more true to who I am, and it does feel like it's still founded in sound, but it's a little bit more. It's not the same what you'd think of when you think of music, I guess. Yet.
Yes. I want to know about painting. Okay, so was there like a moment when you were a kid and you opened some paints and you saw paint or color? Or was it just like an overall feeling?
Well, so interestingly, my brother was pegged as the creative, artistic one, not me. And now he works as a machinist, and he is creative in his own different ways. But I guess everyone can be. I don't know where I'm trying to go with that exactly, other than I wasn't really pegged as the creative one. I always kind of felt that way, but I always was kind of put in a different box. And so I guess for a really long time, I kept all of my artwork to myself because I was so used to being told that it was not very it wasn't very good, I guess. I don't know, a very generic adjective there. But and the first time I ever kind of got attention for being sort of good was with music. And I think it was mostly people getting actually excited about the instrument. Being like, oh, wow, that's a harp. Actually, if you want to hear more about that, you should watch last week's Xcamera with Grace, because she talks a lot more eloquently about that sort of idea than I do. But yeah, that's, I guess, did that answer your question?
Totally did. Yeah. Like the big people when we're small can really crush us. And it's like so weird that we're like, okay, this is art. And if you're good at drawing houses when you're 6 years old, then you're an artist. Or if you're good at singing Row Your Boat in tune, then you're a singer. And it's like, that's the stick that we're using to measure if someone's an artist for the rest of their lives. Like, it's amazing that you burst out of that.
Yeah, I have had some very, very fantastic mentors in my life. And some very awful ones too. And some of those awful ones I thought were very great at a time. But it's been a weird winding sort of path getting to here. And it kind of is a full circle sort of. And in fact, actually, this week is like a week, the same week that I finished my undergraduate and became so this is like a landmark sort of day or week. Not today, the 26th is the anniversary, but we're close.
I have a question about that too, actually. Like, do you think, okay, so institutions are complicated. Do you think that there's like a possible institution that could be good? Like, is there a possible institution that could be amazing and supportive and help grow people? Like, what would that look like?
Well, there has to be. I guess it just depends on how we define what an institution is, right? Because like I even am critical of the institution I went to because the people that took an interest in me weren't the people that were making the big bucks there. It was all contract people, and they so I don't know. I feel like that, yes, there has to be. I just don't know what it looks like yet, and I think that it's we're kind of an exciting time because people are more interested in that now, and it's a cool time to be somebody that's discovering what that could mean. I guess, but I don't know what it would look like yet. I think that you know, our education system as a whole is just totally not very conducive to the diversity that humans inherently have. You know, there's a lot of us, and we're all very different.
Yes. And okay, I want to ask you a quick question about mentors before we go into something else, but I just want to say, I think a lot of people don't realize they might go through university and not realize that the people who are TAing them, the assistant professors, the associate professors, are sometimes getting paid peanuts and working super overtime and have like nothing. And it's just like so depressing, but they don't tell you that because they don't want to make you sad. But yeah, it's not a good scene. But I want to ask you about mentors, because you've had a lot of mentors. For people that are listening and they're like, oh, how do I get a mentor? How do I find a good mentor? What does it mean to be a good mentor? Do you have any tips for them on mentorship?
Well, see, I don't know, because I feel as though my whole life I've just kind of failed forward. You know, like a fish out of water, but it somehow flops its way to a pool. I don't know, but I mean, there's. I find that, you know, you people that are interested in what you do and who you are a lot more are a lot better mentors than people that are more interested in like your ideas and extracting them. Like I've you know, that sort of idea, and people that are interested in just meeting you where you're at and saying like, well. Sometimes I've had mentors that have told me that I'm an incomplete person and I need to do certain things to become complete. And other mentors have been guided me and said like, well, you already are complete, but let's blossom. And those are the people that you want to hold on to. You know, Catherine Ladano is my mentor for this project, but she also was through my undergraduate degree in not a very formal way, but she was my professor, and she took an interest in me as a person and as a creative person and what I had to contribute. And that was, you know, having that sort of a person really is, I don't know, it's invaluable. Like you can't ascribe a number or anything to it. It's the best.
I also feel like you're a person who shows up. Like mentors, like they're looking for someone who's shining, and like maybe this gets you into trouble sometimes, like how bright you're shining, but like you're showing up and you're shining. If there's time for questions, you're asking a question. If there's room for like feedback, you're giving feedback. And I feel like there's something there about finding mentors, is like doing, trying, having a practice, this sort of thing.
Yeah. Was there a question? I agree.
I'm just agreeing. I want to talk about your project, and I'm curious, would you like to talk about what your project is, or would you like to talk about your practice and like why you're doing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, like, I mean, so this project came about and it went in a full circle sort of direction of like, I don't want to make a sit down and shut up concert, you know, like, because that's what I've done for my undergraduate degree. That's what, you know, I feel as though I've always attended, where you show up, you find your seat, and don't you dare unwrap a candy for the next like hour, you know, and don't clap unless it's the end, not between, you know, like that sort of nonsense. And I was like, oh, I feel music is a very physical thing. It's a very, you know, the pulse is in the body, and music is such a part of the body for me, that I feel as though I had a really hard time engaging with music in a lot of times, and it was very confusing to me why I was even studying it. So I now kind of think of it more in a more vague sense of sound, because I mean, I kind of think that I make music that like birds make sometimes. Like it's mostly just about letting you know that you're there. It's oh, hello, I'm here, and then somebody else goes, oh, hello, I'm also here, and that's kind of what I like to make sounds for. Is similar to like the cave paintings of I just make sounds to let people know that I'm here and that I exist and that I feel things, and perhaps we can connect through that shared experience of auditory phenomena. I don't know, but my practice has expanded a lot beyond just sound, because it always started with image, because I always wanted to be a painter, and I still do paint, not very often anymore. And then I have I just started sewing. I have all these things behind me. I guess I could turn the blur off, but I mean, this is part of what I do, but this is part of this recent installation, because I realized I was giving people a lot of agency over creating the sounds in the space. But after a certain point, you're not going to just stand around. There's a statistic that people spend less than 60 seconds looking at every painting or something, when they go to an art gallery. And I was like, well, I want people to stay. I don't want people to come do the things and then leave. So I made all this so that people would have a place to sit and lay down and get comfortable in a sort of, and also facilitate an informal atmosphere with these bright colors and bizarre shapes, I guess. So it's always, I mean, my practice just goes where the crumbs take me.
That was amazing, by the way. I don't know if it felt rambly, but it felt really good to listen to. Tell me about radical playfulness. What is that for you right now?
Right. Well, I feel playfulness is the opposite of work. And I feel as though when we live in this late stage capitalist society, playing is a form of rebellion. And doing so radically, I guess, just means reconnecting with your body, understanding that you have agency over this, and that play can be a lot of things. Play, for me, play is often very quiet. It's sitting with myself, often near trees, or flowers or grass or squirrels. And so I kind of, what was the question? Playfulness, radical playfulness. Yeah. And so for me, this space was kind of like an invitation to those that maybe haven't really thought about play in a long time, because you hit a certain age and play starts to become something that we call like sport, or I don't know, going out and getting crunk. That's a form of play, but radical playfulness is not subscribing to this capitalist idea of what play is, where you have to go and consume, but rather you can just be with yourself and with other people, and whatever happens in that space, I kind of think of as play. When it doesn't have a goal in mind other than connection.
I guess I don't know. Pushback, right? There's a lot of pushback on play.
I hate that this is being recorded, because now somebody's going to say this is what Anta's play is, and that's probably too narrow a definition that I just gave. But sorry.
That somebody needs to change their relationship to information and time, because you're allowed to be expansive and change and grow and have different ideas, and this is you in a moment. It's not you're not like a final copy of a thing that is crystallized in time. These recordings are lies. They're not even real. What you're seeing, if you're watching this later, is not what is here. Is there a way that we can invite people to play? Is there some way that people who are listening right now could play?
At home?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always have these shakers nearby, because I like to have them. But I don't know.
Maybe we all have things that we could shake, even.
Yeah, that would be. Maybe we can do that when we open up to the question period or something.
That's a great idea.
And we can all unmute simultaneously and make a sound together. Yeah. A drone, because you have drone. Well, maybe it would be a little bit more percussive than a drone. Anywho,
okay. Drone can be expensive. Drone, in case anyone doesn't know, is like extended tones, extended. It's a lot of things, but yeah, I'll imagine just extended tones. Okay, but I wanted to ask you about lability because I just read it like that because there was an L in front of A, and like maybe I'm missing something from like radical crypt spaces, or I don't know, but I'm curious what lability is to you.
Well, actually, this word became important to me after one of my other mentors, Charlene Wallace, used the word labile as like a word of the week for our studio. And it means like being ready for constant change or always being prepared for movement. And to me, that is kind of how I go about creating sound. It's like a amorphous piece of clay, and the beautiful thing about sound is it disappears as soon as you create it. And so when I make a sound that I don't like, I either can change what's happening so that it works, or I can go somewhere new. And so for me, like sound is a very labile thing. It the act of creating it is also the act of releasing it and destroying it. So that's kind of how I go about playing with people. That's something that I also like to say is like I don't like to play for people as a musician. I like to play with people as an artist. And so that's something that you have to be open to, that constant changing and shaping and reshaping when you're giving yourself over to other people to be a part of something together. If you have too strict an idea of what that has to be, then you're limiting things a little.
Okay, well, that is amazing. It's like you could see what I wanted to ask you about next, because the next thing I wanted to ask about was like giving yourself over to other people. So in this project, one of the things that we're all exploring in COVOX is this thing, digital audience engagement. And it's been a journey. Like we're like, what is that? What does it mean? And then you, Andrew, have taken it many directions. Like you've gone one way and then stopped and then gone the other way. And I don't know what that's felt like. But I'm curious what digital audience engagement is for you now, how that relates to your piece and your work.
So, I mean, I like to use technology to create wonder, and like, because it's amazing how the simplest bits of code can make people go like, how did that happen? Like one of the installation pieces that I have are these flower pots, and if you touch them, there's a pickup on it, and it triggers a clip to play, so that if you ring them, you'll get an unsuspected sound as a result. It's taking something that's super analog and becoming this kind of bizarre thing, this off-kiltering sort of thing. And so that to me is one way of I mean, in some ways electricity is like magic in real life, and we like act as if magic is this separate thing, but like people that understand how to control electricity are like very close to magicians in the real sense, I guess. And so that's part of it to me. Another part is about empowerment, because I feel as though like good art always has made me feel empowered in some way, or at least seen. And so for every part of this installation that is going to be presented in the public, one, it's not made of anything precious. And so I am creating ways for people to make all of these things for themselves at home, which, because I don't like the idea that everyone has to, come to me for like, people are able to make these things. I don't make anything fancy. It's those things were made out of a piezo element or a piezo element. I don't know how to say it. You can find it in a lot of kids' toys, an XLR cable. You can learn how to solder at your local makerspace. All these sorts of things. I'm trying to make my practice a space that you can go to visit, that makes you want to go experience other things afterwards. and a lot of those things are facilitated through digital media. Like I have a website that's under development to have documentation and reference material. Another thing that I'm doing is I have this music box that plays itself, but you program it in like this very old traditional sense of code where you punched holes in card, and those go through. And after we had to play test, and so we had 2 nights of it, and I'm recording them currently. But I'm going to mount everyone's melodies that they create online, so that perhaps after you leave this, you can see the handprint that you left. You're a part of. You've left your mark on this show, and that's permanent. And it's incomplete without you. That's probably my favorite one, actually, is I'm calling it like a melody cloud, because it's all these strips of paper that I have hanging off a fishing line from the ceiling, and people get to make their melody or add on to somebody else's or do whatever, and then find it online later. I don't know.
No, that was really good. Okay, so I feel like, okay, so I have a sense of digital and I have a sense of engagement, but I guess I'm curious, there's something that I'm not quite understanding in general about digital audience engagement, about like you're the artist, maybe. I mean, like, this is how people talk about it, whether you are or you aren't. You're the artist, you make an art, and then there's an audience who comes to the art and they experience it. And it seems like you're playing with this idea by being like, okay, well, yeah, and then here's a recipe for you to make this ringing flower pot at home. Or like, here, you're actually making the sounds that are going to get played out of this thing. Like, you're inviting people deeper into the creation process. And I'm curious, what does inviting people into your creation process feel like? Like, does it feel good? Does it feel like community co-creation? Does it feel scary sometimes?
Yeah, actually, this is something that you said in a talk that I had the first time I had seen you. I went to a workshop that you were running, and I related to this very much. That I've just been searching for community my entire life, and I totally suck at it. This isn't what you're saying, but this is me talking now. I totally suck at it. I can't hold on to people. I can't. When I find a community that I think that I fit into, I end up finding out how I don't, and I'm ostracized from it. My life is wrapped with isolation, and so I'm always in search of community, and I always feel as though I have a very hard time reaching people, and so this is sort of a beautiful way that I'm able to feel seen and be a part of something without having to I don't know, in a way that feels natural to me. I had a conversation with somebody the other day where we were trying to brainstorm ideas for this different thing that I won't get into, but they were like, why aren't you still talking, Andrew? And I was like, well, because I kind of am aware that my first idea for how to communicate with people is always performance art, and that doesn't really work for everyone. So that's kind of what it's been for me, is really nice to feel understood and seen, and also a part of something that's not just about me. I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do know, and yes. The thing you said earlier, you said that you've sometimes encountered art that made you feel like a way, like art that deeply impacted you. Can you give an example? Is there any example that stands out to you of an art that you've experienced that moved you or touched you deeply?
Well, yeah, one of the most standout like painters for me has always been Georgia. Not always, I say that, since 2017 when she was at the AGO, has been Georgia O'Keeffe. I always thought that she had this beautiful perception of the world that was it was so real that people thought it was abstract, and I felt like that. Her attention to detail and how she saw every little thing. I felt as if like maybe she saw things in a way that I see things. There's another thing where it's like there's some people that are, or maybe this is me, but I always feel as though I was a person that saw things and wasn't really seen. And that exhibit made me feel as if like, oh, this person sees things the way I see things sometimes. So that's one person. I also, Yoko Ono is one of my favorite artists. Perhaps because we sing similarly, and that's not a dig of her or myself, I think, but her art that's deeply impactful. There's this painting that I have in my kitchen. It's called Dancers, and it's by an American painter named Robin Sealark. And for some reason, that painting really hit me, and so I bought it. But yeah, I don't know. Most art that impacts me most deeply is actually visual. It's not too common that I find music that I find impactful. And that's not I like listening to music that I feel like it cleans the air rather than pollutes it. And that's a new development. I used to feel as though I only could listen to music with words, and now I feel as though music with words is too overstimulating. So I'm in a new phase this past year of what I'm listening to. Yeah, there's a number of different things, none of which are coming to mind right now.
They can come to mind later. There was something I wanted to ask you about specifically. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about, I don't know, I can't tell. I've only known you as long as this project, but I feel like you have learned a lot of things. This is what it seems like to me. It seems like you're always coming and saying like, I learned this, I learned that. Are there things that you've learned so far in this project that stand out to you? Like anything that feels like a deep learning?
Well,
about yourself or your practice or anything?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about myself for sure. This project has been incredible because I went very hard into one idea, and then over time started falling into what was comfortable, and then flipped back to more or less something similar to what initially I had laid out. Remind me the question?
Oh yeah, just what you've learned.
Oh, what I've learned. Yeah, it's I don't know. People are funny things that are that's kind of really wonderful. That I like that. I think at the beginning of this project, I was very, very nervous to relinquish any amount of control to other people, and now I'm kind of realizing how like almost arrogant it is to go, oh, I know what's going to be best for everybody, you know. So that's kind of a really wonderful thing is understanding like that the community has so much more to offer than you could ever imagine. I don't know, I've learned a lot about you know, engaging with people online and how vapid social media is, and how I don't want to be a part of that at all. You know, at the very beginning of entering into the world, it was like kind of shoved down the throat of like, you need a social media presence and a strong one, and you need to post preferably every day, and you know, and I just can't do that. That's not something I can do, and I've learned that that's not something that you have to do. It's perhaps the most clear and established path right now, but it's there's something that this is a overall sort of thing that I've learned that I think that I would like to impart on people. We're at the very beginning of the digital age, and to think that we would have done it right on the first try is like really silly. Like we have made mistakes, we're going to make more mistakes, but the way that we're using all this stuff, it seems very like restrictive, and we're like giving all of this power and monopoly of this stuff to a handful of billionaires that like cannot be trusted, and we should try something else. And trying something else is not a radical idea, because this thing's only existed for like 30 years. Like what we gotta like. It's really silly to think that we would get it perfect on the first try, I think, and I think that we haven't gotten it perfect, and we're just trying to make it better. And I guess through this, I kind of learned my small but important role in making it better.
And before I ask you my last few things, I'm curious if there are things that you want to talk about that are like coming to you that would be amazing to talk about right now, but that I haven't asked about.
Oh, no, I think you're a wonderful host, Marie. I don't know. There's lots of things that I are on my mind at any given time, but not all of them are suitable for archives. So, I mean, I don't know. I didn't mention enough about how much Darren White and makerspaces have been an influence on me. Those are places that I've felt very empowered, because as a queer person, I also never got to learn how to use tools or anything like that. I was, growing up, I was too feminine for it, I guess, and I felt not like that I didn't fit in when it was time to learn those things, and so I was on my own, and so I've learned those things as an adult, and really enjoy like working with my hands and creating things, and really, I guess, yeah, that's something that I wanted to mention, is like, go to your makerspace. Like, people that are there are usually really cool, and they're really enthusiastic about whatever it is that you are making. That's something that I think that if I had never going to the makerspace and meeting Darren was one of the most significant things in my life that I can remember. I learned how to solder there. I learned how to sew there. I learned how to code there. I learned how to design, and always just saying, I want to do this, and getting an enthusiastic, okay, let's do it. Going there has really kind of showed me a lot of like, oh, if you want to do things, you kind of just have to do them. And everything that's ever been done has been done by a person. Sometimes I go outside and I see all the things and go, oh, a person did that. Like, these are all choices that we made, and some of them are good and some aren't as good.
It's a really powerful learning. Like, everything that you see is made by a person, and like that person underpinned by people, but like, that is such a powerful thing. And you can say the words all day, but I think unless you have actually experienced that lesson, you can't hear it. Like, you are a person. Anyone who's listening to this is a person, and you are capable of making anything. Like, yes, structural things are in place. Yes, there are things that make it almost impossible sometimes. Like, if you're trying to feed yourself, you're not going to be thinking about making a makerspace, but like, anything that exists can be made by someone like you. Like, someone not just like you, but by you.
Yeah, like I don't know. I look around the city and say, like, we have a housing crisis and all these parking lots and land. People are like, oh, you can't do that. And it's like, well, at a point in time, there was something else here. Like, things can change. I don't know why I brought that up. I always like to rag on cars. I hate cars. Yeah. But some people need them for.
Yeah, some people need them, and I think that, yeah. Okay, but I feel like that could be a really funny like title of a song or something, like, about these parking lots. Like, I mean, there's an obvious solution, if people have to live in parking lots.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna open it up. We're opening it up for questions. So we're opening. This is happening, but because it takes people a minute sometimes to get their questions, I want to hear about the first time you went in a makerspace, or at least your first memorable memory. Like, what was it like? Did you like look it up online and walk in and open hours?
No, so I didn't know it existed. And so actually this is really funny because Grace spoke last week, and Grace is actually a huge inspiration to me because we overlapped in school for a year, and her interest in electronics kind of showed me the first idea of like, oh, this, I don't have to be an orchestral harp player. So it's really kind of crazy that, so her doing that anyway got me interested in what could I do with my harp, but I didn't know really anything. And I also, for some reason, really didn't want to use guitar pedals or foot pedals or anything. So I wanted to make a handheld little thing that I could put on the side of my harp. And I saw that people made these like vegetable keyboard things. And so I was like, how do you do that? And so then I asked my teacher, Cam McKittrick, who's wonderful. And he told me to talk to Matt Borland, who he runs the UW Tape Music Club. And so then I went and just met him in his office, which if he has the same office as he did, it's really cool. Like you can barely walk in it because it's just floor to ceiling cool stuff that he's made. But anyway, we were talking and he just like gave me a circuit board and like all the things that I needed to make that. And he was like, have a go see my friend Darren at the Makerspace. And I still have that circuit board. It's being repurposed for a different project now. But that was my first time. I went in and I was like, hey, Darren, I play the harp. I got this stuff from your friend, Matt. He told me to come see you. And I want to make a soundboard mounting MIDI controller for my harp. And he said, okay, let's do it. And so from there, he taught me how to 3D print the case. I learned how to solder for that project for the wiring. And I learned a very basic bit of code. And then from there, it just kind of kept going in and saying, I have different ideas, and him saying, let's do it.
I can just imagine how much he would have loved that, like he just really loves energy and questions.
He's a great guy.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I feel like I love makerspaces. When I travel, I always try and go to the makerspaces or hackerspaces in different countries, and I've seen beautiful things. I've also been intimidated. Like sometimes it can feel a bit scary, but ultimately, like if you just if you just come in and are yourself, like I think it works. But it's like often a lot of people who are very passionate about specific things. And so you can go, do I belong here?
I guess I've only been to the one. I'm very familiar with the one that I went to, but I haven't. I mean, I started going there in my undergraduate, and then the pandemic happened in my undergraduate. So I haven't really left my city in a few years because of the pandemic. I've left it some, but not too much. So I haven't gotten to see what else there is out there too much.
I mean, I feel like conceptually, it's like the most amazing thing. And I don't know, I'm curious what you think about this, because I feel like you think a lot. I mean, I remember we had this conversation about how you were feeding the animals in your yard. And I feel like there's something, and this is going to be a bit scattered, so just bear with me, but like there's something about space, like creating space for things to happen. So like making your yard into a place where there's food, or like making your yard into an ecosystem, or like making a makerspace where there are tools and resources and knowledgeable people. Like there's something about that concept of taking in late capitalism, like in.
Well, remember earlier when we were talking about, can there be good institutions? Like this sounds like one.
Yeah. I think so. Everyone I know who's done it has ended up being tired. Like in the end, they're just like, I can't deal with it anymore. Like someone broke the laser cutter again. Like unless there's like funding, like it always kind of comes down in capitalism to like who's paying the rent and fixing the laser cutter.
Yeah, because breaking things is a huge part of learning. I have my own, I guess, MIDI makerspace happening in my studio here. I've got a harp being built on the floor there at the moment. Oh, wow. And I got a 3D printer, and I don't know, I got lots of stuff happening here. So I have harp students that end up becoming makers because they just see the other stuff in the room, and that's always fun. But yeah, funding and burnout is a thing. I try to give as much as to my students as I can, but I do perhaps stretch myself a little more thin than I should.
Have you been burnt out yet?
Right now.
You are burnt out right now. That's
I'm due for a vacation.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I mean, we talked about work and not working and play. Like, I don't know. There's definitely like this work ethic thing in our culture, and then there's like a lot of like survival. Like, oh, you have to survive, and if you're an artist trying to survive, you kind of need to work even harder.
Yeah, this is the idea of surviving is a little too real, but I feel like I keep interrupting your thoughts.
No, this is how it should go, you know.
Yeah,
I like to like throw fragments in and then
yeah, this is I would love to do that. I'm wondering if that's maybe my next stage is being because you know, always having to be making stuff is kind of exhausting, but helping other people make stuff is you know, funding is an important thing because you have to be able to, you know, still keep the lights on and rest and have a team of support. But that's something that I would like to explore. And this project has kind of shown me a lot of like what is happening behind the scenes of things and how many people go into things, and but also like the procedure of things and you know, how to get things done, how to get it done. Getting it done is a big challenge a lot of the time.
It's huge. When I teach game making workshops, getting it done is a full chapter. Like, it's like alongside ideas, or mechanics is like getting it done, because it's not easy. And like you're making it there. I'm also curious, like once it's done, do you see something past that horizon once this thing is done? Like what is past that for you?
Well, I think that this has given me a lot of opportunities to create a lot of stuff. And I'm kind of putting it all together under this one title, which has kind of lost its meaning over time. But all these little different things are also standalone pieces. It's half art installation, half new music concert, but really it's an exhibit, sort of that bleeds. Each separate exhibit bleeds into the other one, but they also all stand on their own. And I'm kind of just hoping to take these things around, you know, as much as possible. I try to, I can't move all of this on my own, but each individual part I can kind of keep on my bike, and see where I can take it that way. I'm really looking forward to slowing down for just a little bit after this is done, until like September.
I mean, the fallow times are so important, like just letting things rest, letting like things compost and deteriorate. I know I end up talking so much that people might feel like, oh, they can't ask a question, but I want to say, if you ask a question in the chat, I'll read it out loud. And also, if you be promoted as a panelist. Yeah, also, if you want to speak out loud, you can do that. I think there's some kind of system, like Sam, you message Sam, but that is allowed and welcome. Not only allowed, but like invited.
Encouraged, even.
Encouraged. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to encourage people to like move a bit and not stay too stiff for too long. So what should we talk about? I feel like I could talk about so many things with you.
Well, yeah, I find your work very interesting. In fact, it's influenced a lot of this project because I just looking at your work, because you know, we've been parallel to each other for coming up on a year now, working on this larger COVE COVOX thing, and your ideas around like what games are, I kind of was like, oh, did I make a game? Did I make actually, you know what, this is an interesting thing, not an interesting thing, just a thing. Is I was trying to describe to somebody what it was because they wanted to go to it, and I said to them, it's like a VR experience but without the V. and that seemed to get it across what it was. It's an experience in space, and I found ways that you talk about that very influential on the way I've shaped the way I'm thinking about things over the last year.
Yeah, I really loved the way you talked about play. I feel like I need a word. Like when I use the word game, I find I draw in the people that wouldn't really care about what I'm doing, and I push away the people that would care. You know, like it's like there's got to be a word. Like play works okay, but it's there's got to be a word for this kind of thing, this kind of experience thing.
Well, I don't know if I worked in my favor or not, but in advertising the playtest, I was super vague. I was like, this is a experience in sound and space, because I was like, well, I feel as though I always go to events that I have no idea what to expect. Like Night Shift. It was their last year was the first year I moved here to Waterloo, but that was like an experience, and I had no idea what to expect, and it was one of the best things I've gone to in a long time still, and that was like 5 years ago. So that was what I was hoping, and I got a lot of kids that came, and that was a really unexpected but wonderful thing.
Yeah, I want to think Night Shift was created by a magical human being named Eric Rumble. And I really wanted to ask you about playtesting, because you just decided to playtest. I think it was an amazing idea. Oh, there's another question. Oh, I don't know. I'm torn. I want to ask you about I want to read this question.
Wait, ask it while I read it.
Okay. How did you decide how to do playtesting? Like, did you research playtesting, or did you just say, okay, play, test, I'm going to bring people in and see what happens?
To answer your question, Ava, this is being recorded and you can watch it later on. How did I decide? I decided that, well, I didn't know what people were, eventually I was like, well, I don't know how to rehearse this, like a concert, you rehearse, you see how things are going, you work out in sections, you take it home, but like this, I was like, well, it's all created, and then you just set it up and go, okay, here you go. And I was like, well, I don't know how that's going to work. Perhaps we should figure it out. And I might have discovered the term playtesting reading through your blogs. And so I think that might have been my instruction manual. I think so thank you for that resource. But it initially was to gather some source material for later presentation as well, like to get some people contributing themselves to it to then put into the later presentation, so that it already had some people in it. But that ended up becoming like not really a priority. It ended up being actually almost an afterthought by the time that we got everything going, because I'm not sure that many people actually participated in that portion of the testing. But most people just brought themselves and saw what would happen. And wonderful. I wish that we talked about this before the end of this, but I had a nice time talking about other things, and I'll talk about as much as I can in the next 6 minutes. The very first person on the very first night broke my music box. And so like I was like, okay, this is fantastic that we had this test, because like that would have happened on show night, and then like there was a number of people that were disappointed at the test that they didn't get to hear the melody that they made. Although a lot of them still made their melodies, they just didn't get to hear them, but they will hear them when I put them online soon-ish. Like that was like, okay, fantastic. I know that this needed tweaking, and there was different things that ended up being vaguely, well, there was a lot of kids, and kids are great. And I said that in a tone that sounded like I wasn't meaning it, but like kids are great, and they showed me all sorts of different ways that all of the things that I made could be used that I had not even thought about, and so that was like really, really awesome to kind of get to see that and allow me to improve for a later, more public showing. Where did I get the idea to do it though? It kind of just emerged out of the idea that I need to rehearse it, but I didn't know how to rehearse something that was kind of like a painting in some ways.
A lot of people, when they do something like this for the first time, they just don't rehearse. They just assume that they figured it out. And they put it out in the world and it all breaks. Because it does break, you know, like I've worked on experimental games festivals, and like if the more experimental the games festival is, the more likely things will be broken by the end. Like it's a known thing, you've got to go on the first day. And then if you go on the last day, half of the things will be out of commission if they're like alt controllers or installations. They just break.
Well, also like the day of the opening, I hadn't finished writing all the code, you know, like it was working, but it was very, very buggy. And I was like, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with how buggy this is. And it ended up working without a hitch, actually, on the code side, which is unheard of for me.
I've been thinking a lot about how we had this conversation in the fall about what you were doing and where you were thinking, and it was a different thing, but there are threads that have just stayed completely consistent, you know, like this idea of the fourth wall, of like creating something that people can actually get inside. Like actually engage with something, like actually be part of it. I just think it's interesting that that's carried.
Yeah, I really wanted to make something where people could feel seen. That's kind of a center of my practice right now is that feeling seen and a part of something, and it doesn't have to be anything meaningful either. Like there's inherent meaning in just being a part of something with another person. And so this is just kind of like a capsule, this thing.
Could you describe what it means to feel seen? What does that feel like?
Well, for me, it often is that I don't have to explain as much. You know, nothing makes me feel less seen than having to explain myself, because I don't understand what's happening most of the time. And so like feeling seen to me is very much so like when I am in a space where I feel as though I'm comfortable to be, and another person doesn't actually have to be there to see you, to feel seen. Feeling seen can be a solitary event, and this installation being created by a person, that person being me, I'm hoping people will that perhaps don't get to feel seen very often might come in and feel like they are. I hope, because I made it because I never felt very seen when I was told to sit down and shut up and all these different things. I mean, I should have ended before I said that. that very last bit, the sit down, shut, because it's not really about it. Initially, it was a response to concerts, but it's not really fair even. It's a part of a concert series, but it's not really a concert.
Yeah, I do feel though that thing about being told to be quiet and sit down is not exclusive to concerts. Like that's like a lifelong thing. Like certain types of are pushed smaller and smaller. It's like and yeah. So if someone feels seen when they're there alone, is it because they're seen by the art? Like they're seen by the art that allows them to be what they are, that anticipated who they were and makes space for them, or is it something different?
I guess for me, it's like a place where it's quiet and I can just sort of be with myself and whatever that means for anyone. You know, like one person that went to it told me that it was the first moment of playfulness they had since the war started. They were Ukrainian. I'm also Ukrainian, and so that was really quite beautiful to hear. And I don't know if that like meant that she felt seen or not, but it felt as if it meant something. And yeah, so I mean, I don't know. What was the question?
No, that is how we end. We end with what is the question, and thank you so much. I mean, yeah, it was really incredible. I'm actually going to watch this back again because there were some things I wanted to write down and I didn't fast enough.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you so much, and I'm going to invite Sam back up.
Okay.
This is not the end of our conversations, Andrew. It's the end for the rest of you. I'm sorry for today, but yeah, we'll carry on.
Yeah, that was a really, really good conversation. I feel like because you two are so similar, I could just like listen to you two talk about everything and also nothing for a very, very long time. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Marie, for hosting again, and Andrew for spending a bit of your afternoon with us. Yeah, so thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. This was recorded, and we'll be sending out the link to the recording next week in case you want to watch it back again. Yeah, so please stay tuned for more information on when Andrew's when Above the Line is taking place. I know it's
May 7th and 8th.
Perfect, thank you.
There's 2 show times each evening.
Yeah, so we hope to see you all there, and have a lovely afternoon and a great evening, or a great weekend. Thank you, everyone. Bye.